Hi everybody, welcome to the Rare Wellness Podcast. In this podcast, we explore cutting-edge ideas in regenerative, longevity, and performance medicine, all delivered in bite-sized segments. I'm joined today by Becca Pomona, one of our performance medicine nurses here at the Center for Regenerative and Performance Medicine.
Hi everybody, this podcast is brought to you by the Center for Regenerative and Performance Medicine, located here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. You can visit us online at www.c4rpm.com.
Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns or treatment.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Hey everyone, today's episode is all about protein. Now, we spent a lot of time talking with our patients about how to get enough protein, and for most people, it's about 150 grams of protein a day, or 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Sometimes that can feel somewhat out of reach, and so we've developed a system to help people scaffold their protein intake to try to make this easier. It's called protein density, and it boils down to one number: calories per gram of protein. The lower the number, the more protein dense the food.
This seems like one of those concepts that seems so obvious when you hear it, but it totally reframes everything. I've been doing nutrition counseling with some of our patients for a while now, and the number one barrier isn't motivation. It's that people don't understand why their current meal plan isn't working. They're eating what they think is healthy, but the math just is not mathing. This framework makes the invisible problem visible.
That's a great way to put it. So here's how it works. You take an average person on a 2,000 calorie diet with a protein goal of 150 grams. If you divide 2,000 calories by 150 grams, you get about 14 calories per gram of protein. That 14 is your target protein density. If every single food you ate all day had a protein density of 14, meaning 14 calories for every gram of protein, you'd hit your goal perfectly by the end of the day without even thinking about it.
So 14 is your break-even point, and lower is better because that means you're getting more protein per calorie, which also means that theoretically, there's a perfect food out there with a protein density of exactly 14 you could eat all day and just hit your target.
Well, funny you should say that, because there actually is. Lima beans come at a protein density of around 14 points. So technically, the simplest protein strategy in the world would just be eat nothing but lima beans.
Problem solved. Episode over. Everybody go out and buy some lima beans.
Right? We could just prescribe an all lima bean diet. Unfortunately, in our clinical experience, patient compliance with an all lima bean diet tends to be extremely low.
Yeah, shockingly low. I'd say somewhere between 0 and 0%. I've never once had a patient come back and say, you know what, I've been eating nothing but these and I've never felt better.
So since the lima bean plan isn't going to work for most people, we need a more practical approach, and that's where the 3 categories come in. Once you know your target protein density of 14, every food falls into 3 groups. Category 1, anchor foods. These are foods with a single-digit protein density, under 10. These are incredibly protein dense. They deliver so much protein per calorie that they create a surplus, which means you buy room to enjoy other foods. Category 2, balanced foods. These have a protein density somewhere between 10 and 18, right around the 14 target. You could eat these all day long and you'd land right around where you need to be. And category 3, low protein foods. These have a protein density of 19 or higher, sometimes dramatically higher. And they fill your calorie budget fast without contributing much to protein.
And this is where the framework gets really clinically useful, because when I sit down with a patient and we look at their food diary, you can immediately see the problem. They're not eating bad foods, but they're just building meals without these anchors. Their plates are full of balanced and low protein foods stacked together, and mathematically, that combination will never get them to 150 grams within 2,000 calories. It's not a discipline problem, it's more of an engineering problem.
That's exactly right. And here's the key insight. When you pair an anchor food with a low protein food, that anchor's surplus absorbs the deficit. And you can often create a meal that's balanced overall. But this is the trap. If you build a meal out of a balanced food plus a low protein food, the net result is a low protein meal, and you've diluted it way past your target. You need anchors to offset low protein foods. Balanced foods don't have enough surplus to do the job.
Yeah, I like to think of it like mixing hot and cold water. The anchor food is hot water. It has a lot of thermal energy to give. A low protein food is cold water. Mix them together and you can get something warm. But a balanced food is already lukewarm. So you mix lukewarm with cold and you just get cold. You need that heat source, that anchor, to bring the temperature up.
That's actually a perfect analogy. I'm stealing that one from my patient visits. Now let's put protein density numbers on real foods so everyone can see where their favorite foods land. Let's start with anchors, the single-digit foods. Shrimp comes out at 4.1. Canned tuna is 4.1. Whey protein is 4.4, cod 4.6, egg whites 4.7, chicken breast, the classic, 5.3, Greek yogurt and non-fat kind is 5.8, cottage cheese is 5.8, turkey breast 6.5, ground beef at 99% lean is 7.2, pork tenderloin is 7.7, edamame is 8.6, ground turkey is 8.5, salmon is 9.4, and firm tofu is 9.4.
A few things jump out to me. First, the range within this anchor category is huge. Chicken breast at 5.3 is delivering protein at nearly 3 times the efficiency you need. Even salmon at 9.4, the weakest anchor on the list, is still 40% more efficient than your target. Second, and I think this is important for all of our listeners, notice how many plant-based options made the anchor list. Edamame, tempeh, and firm tofu are all single digit. That's significant for anybody who's following a vegetarian or plant-forward diet.
That's a great point. I want to spend a minute on the vegetarian angle because I think there is a misconception that you can't hit protein goals without meat. Firm tofu at 9.4 is the same protein density as salmon, and there's a practical advantage to tofu that I think is underappreciated. It absorbs whatever flavor you cook it with. You can press it, cube it, toss it, and stir fry with soy sauce or ginger. It becomes this incredibly versatile anchor that works in Asian bowl, cuisine, salads, scrambles, you name it.
Yeah, I actually had somebody recently who was vegetarian and convinced she couldn't get to 150 grams without supplements. We rebuilt her meal plan using tofu and tempeh as her primary anchors and edamame as a snack, Greek yogurt for breakfast. She hit 145 grams on her first day without a single protein shake. Genuinely, she was shocked, and the protein was always available to her. She just hadn't been structuring her meals around those anchor foods.
That is a perfect example. And tempeh at 8.7 is actually stronger anchor than tofu. It's fermented, which gives it a nuttier flavor and better digestibility. Plus, it retains more fiber and micronutrients from the whole soybean. For anyone who hasn't tried it, tempeh sliced and pan-seared with a little tamari sauce is one of the best plant-based protein sources out there.
So what about the balanced foods? Because I think the balanced category is where a lot of the everyday staples live.
Right. Balanced foods have protein densities somewhere between 10 and 18. Whole eggs are 11.9, lentils almost exactly at our 14 target, making them one of nature's most perfectly balanced foods. Black beans are 15.2, and cheddar cheese 17.5.
Lentils at 12.9 is fascinating to me from a clinical nutrition standpoint. They're essentially protein neutral. They neither help nor hurt your density math, but they bring so much else to the table: iron, folate, fiber, resistant starch for gut health. So when a patient asks me what to eat with their chicken bowl, lentils are a much smarter side than rice because they hold your protein density steady while adding significant micronutrient value. Rice would drag your density up toward the target ceiling.
Excellent point. Now, here's where things get eye-opening. Low protein foods, protein density of 19 or higher. Bread is about 25.5, pasta 24.7, quinoa, which a lot of people think of as a protein food, is 27.3. Almonds are 27.6, oatmeal 28.3, brown rice 42.7, white rice 48.1, and avocado is 80. And olive oil, infinite. 0 protein, all calories.
The quinoa one always gets a reaction when I share that with patients. It's been marketed as the superfood protein source for years, and it does have more protein than rice, that's true. But at a density of 27, it's still firmly in the low protein category. If you're relying on quinoa to hit your protein goals, the math just doesn't work. You'd blow through your calorie budget long before you got to 150 grams of protein.
And this is where protein density framework really gets powerful because now you can do the math on meal combinations. Let's take the classic example everyone wants to know: chicken and rice. How much rice can you eat with chicken breast and still keep your meal at or below the protein density of 14?
Yeah, this is the one that I've been waiting for because I eat this a lot and I want to know exactly how much rice I'm allowed before I'm working against myself.
So let's work it out. 6 ounces of chicken breast, about 280 calories, and 53 grams of protein, a protein density of 5.3. A cup of cooked white rice has about 242 calories, but only about 4.5 grams of protein, a protein density of 48. If you do the algebra to find the combination that averages out to 14, you get roughly 2.5 cups of rice per 6 ounces of chicken breast.
That's a huge portion of rice. I was honestly expecting you to say like 3/4 of a cup. That really shows how powerful a strong anchor actually is.
And that's the beauty of anchoring with a food that has a protein density of 5. Chicken breast is so far below 14 that it creates an enormous surplus. Let me prove it with a more practical portion. 6 ounces of chicken plus 2 cups of rice gives you about 764 calories and 62 grams of protein. That's a protein density of 12.3, still well under our 14 target. You actually got room for more rice or sauce or vegetables on top. You're still balanced.
62 grams of protein in one meal, that's over 40% of your daily target in a single sitting. And it's genuinely satisfying and a normal looking plate of food. Nobody's going to look at that chicken and rice bowl and think that you're on some extreme diet.
Now let me show you where people get in trouble. Let's say instead of chicken and rice, you make a meal of black beans and rice, a vegetarian staple. Black beans are balanced at about 15, rice is 48. But here's the problem. Balance plus low doesn't work the way anchor plus low does. Even at a 1-to-1 ratio by weight, the combined meal lands around 25 and 28. That's firmly in the low protein territory.
And this is a mistake I see constantly in practice. Patients come in eating beans and rice, hummus and pita, oatmeal with fruit, all combinations of balance plus low or low plus low. Each meal looks really healthy, but when you add up the entire day, they're at 70 grams of protein and wondering why they're not making any progress. The framework makes it immediately obvious why. There's no anchor anywhere throughout that day.
Exactly. Now, that doesn't mean you can never eat beans and rice. It means you need to understand that when you have a meal, you're going to need to make up the protein somewhere else during the day with an anchor. Or this is where the vegetarian strategy gets smart. Swap the beans and rice for tofu and rice. Tofu is an anchor at 9.4. Now the same style of meal works. You've replaced the balanced food with an anchor and suddenly the math is on your side.
And honestly, that's such a practical swap. Same bowl, same cuisine, same general idea, but tofu stir fry over rice instead of beans over rice, and you've gone from a protein density of 26 to something closer to 13 or 14. That one substitution could be the difference between hitting your goal or falling short.
Great point. Now let me share the simple strategy that comes from this framework. I call it the anchor method. At every meal, start with an anchor, any single-digit protein density food. Chicken breast, Greek yogurt, shrimp, tuna, cottage cheese, whey protein, salmon, edamame, tofu, tempeh. Then add whatever sides you want. Rice, bread, fruit, vegetables, sauce, knowing that your anchor has built up a big enough protein surplus to absorb them.
What I like about this anchor method is that it works regardless of your dietary philosophy. Whether you're an omnivore, a pescatarian, or a vegetarian, every one of these diets has anchor foods available. Omnivores have chicken and beef. Pescatarians have shrimp, tuna, salmon, or cod. Vegetarians have tofu, tempeh, edamame, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and egg whites. The framework is diet agnostic. You just pick your anchors and build.
Here a quick reference. Anchor foods are the single protein density. We'll put them up on the screen so that you can review those.
Balanced foods, protein density 10 to 18. I want to add one clinical pearl here. For patients who are tracking this and still coming up short, maybe they travel frequently or have days where meal prep just falls apart. Whey protein isolate at 4.4 is basically a cheat code. One scoop takes 60 seconds. There you got 25 grams of protein and it barely moves your calorie budget. I tell my patients to keep a bag of it at home or a bag at their office. It's the easiest anchor that exists.
Great advice. And one more supplement worth mentioning, creatine monohydrate. 3 to 5 grams a day. It doesn't add protein directly, but it supports muscle mass retention and emerging evidence of cognitive benefit and has decades of safety data behind it. It's an insurance policy for the days your nutrition isn't perfect.
Okay, so let's give everyone the takeaways. Protein density is calories per gram of protein. Lower is better. Your target is 14 for a 2,000 calorie, 150 gram protein goal. Single digit foods are your anchors. Build every meal around one of those. Balanced foods between 10 and 18 are your supporting cast. Low protein foods at 19 or above are fine as long as they're paired with a strong anchor. And if all else fails, there's the all lima bean diet.
Yeah, with an impressive 0% compliance rate.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. If you found value in today's episode or you learned something new, please leave us a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend. Your support helps us to provide free content to support you on your journey to better health.
And I'm Dr. Jamie Lewis, reminding you your body holds an incredible potential to heal, thrive, and perform. Sometimes you just need some right tools to unlock its full potential and help you live your best life now. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.